He was called a gospel legend, a man whose voice could move hearts and bring people to tears. BB Winans had spent decades building an image of faith, family, and music that touched millions. People looked at him and saw a man of God, a man who lived by the same words he sang. But you won't believe how far the truth was from what the public thought. Let me tell you, this is how a story of harmony turned into one of whispers, betrayal, and accusations that would follow him for years. His name was respected not just in gospel circles, but in the world of entertainment. He sang for presidents, shared stages with legends, and even found a place in the heart of media royalty, like Oprah Winfrey. To many, he was untouchable. But here is the shocking part. The same people who celebrated him on stage were the ones who started to notice the cracks behind the scenes. BB came from the famous Winans family of Detroit, a dynasty of 10 siblings who all carried the gift of music. From a young age, BB and his sister Cece were pushed into the spotlight, and they didn't just meet expectations, they smashed them. Their voices blended like they were born to sing together, and their songs crossed over into mainstream charts. They were breaking barriers in gospel music, winning awards, and bringing faith-based music to audiences that had never heard it before. Fans believed they were the perfect example of family unity. Siblings who prayed together, sang together, and stood together no matter what. But this is where it gets interesting. While the world saw a brother-sister team, those close to them whispered about tensions, about disagreements over money, about who controlled the direction of their brand. Fame had brought them to the top, but it had also planted seeds of mistrust. Behind closed doors, BB had become more protective, even controlling, of how the public saw him. He guarded his image like a fortress, careful about every word, every appearance, and every business move. Some said the fame had changed him. Others believed he was simply trying to protect everything he had worked for. But what makes this story different? It's that the trouble wasn't coming from outside enemies. It was coming from within his own circle. And then destiny took an unexpected turn. BB started stepping out on his own, moving away from the duo with Cece. At first, fans thought it was just a normal career move, but those inside the industry could see that it was also the start of something much bigger and much darker. He had the voice, the influence, and the connections to keep rising. But in 2009, the image he had worked so hard to protect shattered overnight. News broke that BB Winans had been arrested for domestic assault. According to authorities, during an argument over child custody, he allegedly pushed his ex-wife, Deborah Denise Winans, to the ground. The gospel community was stunned. This wasn't some wild celebrity caught up in a tabloid scandal. This was BB Winans, the man who preached peace, love, and forgiveness through his music. The craziest part, one moment the headlines were everywhere, and the next, silence. No interviews, no follow-up reports, no public apology. It was as if the whole thing had been swept under the rug. And that's when people began to wonder, was BB being protected by his powerful friends? Was the truth being hidden to save a brand? The silence after the arrest was almost louder than the news itself. For a man who had built his life on public performances and open expressions of faith, BB's sudden disappearance from the conversation was strange. But here's the shocking part. His closest and most powerful connection, Oprah Winfrey, also stayed completely silent. Fans knew how strongly Oprah had spoken out on women's rights and domestic abuse in the past, so her lack of comment was confusing. People began asking, why would she stay quiet about someone so close to her? Whispers in the industry suggested that BB's deep ties to Oprah's network and brand might have played a role. Some believed it was strategic silence to protect reputations. Others thought there was more to their connection than anyone truly knew. But no one could deny the fact that this silence allowed BB to quietly start repairing his public image without facing the full weight of public outrage. Still, that arrest had left a stain that couldn't be fully washed away. And this is where it gets interesting. While the domestic violence story faded from the headlines, new whispers began to take its place. This time, they were about money, business deals, and control. People in the gospel industry began talking about unpaid collaborators, about royalty disputes, and about BB being overly controlling in his music productions. It wasn't just strangers making these claims. Some of these whispers came from people who had once worked with him closely. Rumors swirled about a possible business collaboration between BB and a controversial megachurch pastor who had been accused of financial fraud. The partnership never fully launched, but leaked emails suggested BB had been seriously involved in talks about a faith-based investment opportunity. Several people in his circle reportedly warned him to walk away, but it seemed he was determined to push forward. Destiny took an unexpected turn again when the questions moved closer to home, to his own family. For years, the Winans name had been untouchable in gospel music. They were known for unity, humility, and faith. But now, sources close to the family claim that BB's personal troubles were putting a strain on everyone. And here's the craziest part. His once unshakable partnership with Cece seemed to be breaking down. She remained scandal-free, fully focused on her ministry and her own projects. But insiders believe she was quietly creating distance between herself and her brother. Her decision to work solo at the height of their fame suddenly looked less like a creative choice and more like a way to protect her own image. The most telling detail: during BB's most controversial years, the family made no public statement, no support, no condemnation, not even a single word. In gospel circles, that kind of silence speaks volumes. The family's silence became one of the most talked about parts of the entire controversy. But here's the shocking part. That silence was finally broken, not by Cece or BB, but by a cousin who had worked behind the scenes during the family's rise. In a now-deleted podcast interview that spread across social media like wildfire, this cousin claimed BB wasn't just battling personal scandals. He was allegedly controlling the family's financial decisions in ways that cost several members their rightful royalties from early projects. According to them, during the 90s and early 2000s, BB had taken the lead in managing publishing and performance rights. Many relatives, trusting him completely, didn't even know exactly what they were entitled to. But as time passed and the checks slowed down, suspicion grew. The cousin's words were cutting. He was the voice, the face, and eventually the wallet. Somewhere along the line, the rest of us got left behind. This is where it gets interesting. These weren't just baseless accusations from an outsider. People began digging up old moments that now seemed like hidden clues. Years earlier, during a televised performance, another cousin had made what sounded like a joke about not getting the credit they deserved. Back then, the audience laughed it off, but after the podcast, many saw it as a warning no one paid attention to. Around the same time, leaked emails surfaced between a gospel promoter and BB's team. The promoter accused him of canceling appearances, mismanaging funds, and hiding behind his church connections to avoid legal responsibility for a failed gospel event. The craziest part was BB's reaction, or rather, his lack of one. He said nothing. No interviews, no denials, no attempts to defend himself. That silence began to turn some of his most loyal supporters into doubters. Gospel forums and Facebook groups were filled with debates about whether BB was a misunderstood man or someone who had spent years using his image to hide his flaws. Even gospel radio stations, which had once championed his music, started pulling back from his new releases, unsure whether supporting him was worth the backlash. Destiny had truly taken an unexpected turn, and the once untouchable gospel giant now seemed trapped in a storm of his own making. BB Winans' name had once echoed through church walls as a symbol of hope, faith, and music that could lift the heaviest hearts. But now, that same name carried a weight of controversy, unanswered questions, and a silence that refused to fade. You won't believe how far the public opinion had shifted. Fans who once defended him without hesitation were now torn between holding on to the music they loved and facing the possibility that the man behind it was not who they thought he was. His legacy, the one built on decades of gospel success, now stood on shaky ground. The craziest part was that despite all the whispers, leaked stories, and public doubts, BB never stood in front of a camera to tell his side. Some saw this as wisdom, letting time wash away the drama. Others saw it as proof that there was more truth in the accusations than he wanted to admit. What makes this story different is that it wasn't just about a fall from grace. It was about the way it touched so many corners of the gospel world. From family tensions and broken partnerships to business disputes and powerful allies staying silent, the story revealed just how fragile even the most celebrated reputations could be. And this is where it gets interesting. The Winans family itself, once praised as a picture of unity, now stood as an example of how fame and money could test even the strongest bonds. The industry, the fans, even the church community all seemed to be waiting for a moment that never came. BB speaking his truth. Destiny took an unexpected turn, leaving the world with a choice. Do we separate the man from the music, celebrating the songs while questioning the person who sang them? Or do we demand that those who stand in the spotlight of faith also stand in the light of accountability? In the end, BB's story wasn't just about scandal, it was about the unanswered questions that still hang in the air. And maybe that's what keeps people talking, because until he finally speaks, the truth about BB Winans will remain one of gospel's most haunting mysteries